What if the traditional playbook for leadership, the one we've all kind of inherited, is actually holding us back? What if, in our hyper-connected, often remote, constantly changing digital world, the secret to truly thriving isn't more tech, but actually, maybe, more humanity? What if the leaders who are really effective today aren't just giving orders, but are, like, creating these profound, authentic connections? Welcome to the Deep Dive. This is where we take that stack of sources you've got and, well, we try to distill them into the most potent, actionable insights. Today, we're plunging into an incredibly timely topic: human leadership in a digital world. We've meticulously sifted through some really compelling research, everything from foundational texts like Human Leadership in a Digital World to the cutting-edge science of human-centered leadership, and a whole bunch of illuminating real-world case studies, too.
Yeah, and our mission today is really to unpack why human-centered leadership isn't just some, feel-good philosophy, though it certainly can feel good, but why it's actually a critical strategic advantage. We're aiming to go beyond the buzzwords. We want to explore its surprising evolution, its core principles, which can sometimes feel a bit counterintuitive, the practical everyday skills that actually bring it to life, the solid science behind why it works so well and how it drives, truly measurable transformative results. Get ready for maybe some powerful shifts in perspective about leading with both heart and strategic mind.
Okay, let's unpack this then. So our sources are suggesting a pretty big shift, right? For decades, the dominant style was what we call command and control. We all kind of recognize it. Top-down directives, strict hierarchies, really focusing on compliance. It worked okay in predictable industrial settings, but the sources seem really clear that it's actually sabotaging success now. How exactly does that old model break down? What are the hidden costs?
That's a really crucial question. The command and control model, I mean, it was efficient for assembly lines, sure, but it inadvertently treats people like interchangeable parts, not unique contributors. And in today's world, digital, hybrid, globalized, its hidden costs are just enormous. It stifles creativity, it leads to high employee turnover because people just feel disempowered, and it creates this culture of fear that actively suppresses innovation. Just think about it. When employees feel like cogs in a machine, they stop sharing their great ideas, right? They stop taking initiative, and they definitely don't bring their whole engaged selves to work. Our sources show this isn't just theory, it's tangible burnout and, frankly, underperformance.
Okay, so if that traditional, pretty rigid approach is losing its grip, what's actually emerging to replace it? You hear these phrases like conscious leadership and human-centered leadership everywhere now. What does that really mean, though, beyond just a trendy label?
Well, at its core, human leadership puts the person right at the absolute center of every decision, every strategy, every cultural move. It's about finding a deliberate balance. The drive for organizational results, yeah, that's still there, but it's seamlessly intertwined with genuine respect for individuals and a profound understanding of their needs. And this isn't just about being nice. Our sources highlight principles like radical empathy, which means really trying to understand someone's perspective even if you don't agree with it, unwavering integrity, genuine authenticity, and having a crystal clear, purpose-driven vision that actually resonates with everyone. Crucially, it champions collaboration over just competition and a relentless growth mindset. And underpinning all of this, emotional intelligence, that deep self-awareness to understand your own impact, the self-regulation to manage your reactions, and the social skills to build powerful relationships. It's like a whole operating system upgrade for leadership.
That is a powerful framework, and you hear so much about trust in the workplace, how vital it is, but it can also feel, well, elusive sometimes. How do these human-centered principles actually build that crucial trust and foster deep loyalty, especially when, it's so easily eroded?
Trust. Yes, it's the bedrock, absolutely. But what our sources reveal is that trust often gets eroded not by some big malicious act, but by subtle inconsistencies, maybe, or just a lack of transparency. Like, for instance, consistently delaying sharing important project updates, even if you have perfectly good reasons, well, that can make people feel excluded. It can chip away at psychological safety faster than you'd think. Human leadership counteracts this by really prioritizing consistent, honest, and proactive communication. Explaining the why behind decisions, not just the what. It's about genuine, specific recognition that goes beyond a generic good job. It's about a visible investment in employee support and development. And when you empower teams with real autonomy, you're not just delegating tasks, you're basically signaling profound trust in their capabilities. When people feel valued, understood, and they have that sense of genuine ownership, well, their loyalty isn't forced, it's earned organically. It becomes this powerful, almost unbreakable bond. And that drives sustained commitment and engagement far beyond, any paycheck or bonus.
That makes a lot of sense, building trust through genuine recognition, transparency. But trust, like we said, can be fragile, especially when disagreements pop up, which they always do, right? Our sources dig into the essential skills here. So, how does a human-centered leader approach conflict, not just as a problem to solve, but maybe as a way to actually deepen that trust and understanding?
Right, and that's where you see the advanced application of human leadership really shine. For a human leader, conflict isn't just a fire to put out, it's a signal, it's an opportunity for growth, for deeper understanding. Instead of just stepping in to mediate, they actively facilitate. This means addressing issues early, before they fester, and crucially, shifting the focus away from fixed positions and towards the underlying interests. Imagine, like, two team members arguing over how to do a task. A human leader doesn't just pick a method. They might ask, okay, what's most important to you in this approach? One might value speed, the other might value quality. By uncovering those underlying interests, you can often find a solution that satisfies both, rather than making one person win and the other lose.
Ah, okay. So it's less about winning the argument and more about understanding the need.
Exactly. It's about creating a safe space for open dialogue, maintaining respect even when ideas clash, and really leading with empathy. And when it comes to feedback, it's not just a performance review once a year. It needs to be specific, actionable, timely, and always focused on the behavior, not the person's personality. And delivered with encouragement, it becomes this powerful growth tool, not, a weapon.
That distinction, focusing on interest versus positions in conflict, that feels really critical. It shifts things from adversarial to collaborative. But, it's easy to say lead with empathy, yet in many high-stakes environments, there's this real fear, isn't there? That too much compassion looks like weakness, or that it might mean avoiding tough decisions. How do human leaders navigate that very real tension between making hard calls and still showing genuine compassion?
This is such a powerful, common misconception, and it's one we really need to dismantle. Compassion and clarity. They aren't antagonists, they're actually symbiotic. They work together. True decisiveness isn't about being ruthless, it's about making timely, informed decisions. Compassion means thoughtfully considering the impact of those decisions on people. So, some strategies. Gathering input before making decisions, not to crowdsource everything, but to make sure you have diverse perspectives, understand the potential implications.
All right, so you're informed but still decisive.
Precisely. Then, avoiding that analysis paralysis and communicating the rationale behind the decision transparently. Explaining why this path was chosen, even if it's a difficult one. It's also crucial to show care in the execution. How can we minimize the negative impact? Maybe offer support or new opportunities to those affected. And critically, following up. Showing ongoing concern and support. It's about being firm on the outcome, maybe, but flexible and human in the process. This approach earns both trust and long-term commitment rather than just resentment.
That's a really nuanced way to put it. Compassion actually enhancing decision-making. Okay, so looking ahead now, what does all this mean for the future of work? Our sources point to several pretty significant emerging trends shaping the next generation of human leadership. What are you seeing?
We're definitely seeing some fascinating developments. One major trend is the significant shift towards mindfulness in leadership. This means leaders are increasingly cultivating a deeper self-awareness, being truly present, emotionally intelligent, practices like meditation, reflective journaling, even just conscious breathing. These aren't just for personal well-being anymore. They help leaders manage their own stress, improve focus, and importantly, model a calm, centered presence for their teams, even when things are chaotic.
Modeling calmness, that's powerful.
It really is. Then there's the rise of purpose-driven teams. Employees, especially younger generations, they're increasingly seeking meaning beyond just the paycheck, right? So leaders are now tasked with explicitly connecting team goals to a larger organizational mission, or maybe even a societal mission, showing how their daily work contributes to something significant.
Making the work feel like it matters.
Exactly. And finally, we see conscious leadership as a sort of overarching philosophy. This means being deeply intentional about your impact, not just on profit, but on people, communities, the environment. It's about focusing on ethical, sustainable growth over just short-term gains, acknowledging that businesses are interconnected with the wider world.
These trends sound incredibly positive, and honestly, maybe a bit like common sense when you lay them out. But, the skeptics out there might still wonder, is this just a soft approach? Is there any hard evidence, any rigorous science behind why this actually works and isn't just, a feel-good fad?
And this is where it gets really fascinating. Because human leadership isn't just feel-good, it is rigorously backed by robust science. One of the most important discoveries, really, in organizational behavior is psychological safety. It's a term coined by Harvard professor Amy Edmondson. It's basically the shared belief within a team that it's safe for interpersonal risk-taking, that you can speak up, share ideas, admit mistakes, even challenge the status quo without fear of negative consequences like being ridiculed or punished.
Okay, so it's about feeling safe to be vulnerable, essentially.
In a way, yes, but more than that, it's about enabling optimal cognitive function. When psychological safety is high, teams consistently outperform others. Why? Because mistakes become invaluable learning opportunities. Everyone feels secure enough to bring their full selves, their best ideas to work. This isn't about being nice, it's about creating the conditions for high performance.
That makes intuitive sense. If I'm not afraid to speak up, I'll probably contribute more. But what about the direct, measurable impact on performance, productivity? How does neuroscience play into this?
Yeah, the data here is really compelling. Studies from places like Gallup show that highly engaged employees, they're up to 21% more productive. They have 41% lower absenteeism compared to disengaged employees.
Wow, those are big numbers.
They are, and this isn't just about pushing people harder, it's about tapping into intrinsic motivation, that internal desire we all have to grow, master skills, contribute meaningfully. It's far more sustainable, far more powerful than any extrinsic incentive like a bonus. And neuroscience actually explains why this happens. Our brains have these incredible things called mirror neurons. They fire not just when we do something, but also when we watch someone else do it or feel an emotion.
So we literally mirror what we see.
Pretty much. It's how we biologically feel into another person's experience. It enables empathy. So a leader who genuinely listens and reflects back feelings, they're not just being nice. They are literally engaging their team's neural pathways for connection and understanding. Furthermore, the prefrontal cortex, vital for complex decision-making, problem-solving, impulse control, it functions optimally when stress levels are low. This just highlights the crucial role of psychological safety in literally allowing our brains to do their best work. And things like positive reinforcement, authentic recognition, a sense of belonging, they trigger the release of dopamine and oxytocin, neurotransmitters that boost motivation, focus, pleasure, social bonding. So leaders who act with genuine empathy, who create these safe environments, they are quite literally influencing the brain chemistry of their teams, fostering creativity, collaboration, and sustained high performance. It's science, really, not just sentiment.
Wow, that connection to actual brain chemistry.
Yeah.
It makes it so concrete, doesn't it? Okay, so we've explored the why and the how. But what are the measurable, tangible results? Does embracing human-centered leadership truly move the needle on a company's bottom line?
Oh, the impact is profound and absolutely tangible. It dramatically improves employee engagement, retention, and innovation, all critical drivers of long-term success. Think about it. Engaged employees are more motivated, they collaborate better, they're significantly more productive. Our sources show companies with high engagement report, like we said, 21% higher profitability and 17% higher productivity. That's huge.
Huge, yeah.
And on the retention front, supportive human leadership significantly reduces turnover. That saves substantial recruitment and training costs, which can run into hundreds of thousands, even millions for bigger companies. And finally, psychological safety, which is a cornerstone of this approach, it fuels innovation. It encourages risk-taking, idea sharing without fear of judgment. That leads to groundbreaking products, new solutions. So this isn't just about morale, it's about gaining a real market advantage.
Do we have any real-world examples that really illustrate this in action, showing that direct link to success?
Absolutely. Take Barry-Wehmiller. They're a manufacturing company. They dramatically reversed declining employee morale and really high turnover by implementing what they call truly human leadership. Their focus on valuing every single individual led to significantly lower turnover rates and consistently high employee engagement. It transformed their culture and their bottom line.
So a real turnaround story.
Totally. Then there's Google's Project Aristotle research. This was an exhaustive study. It looked at hundreds of Google teams. They found psychological safety was the single most critical factor for high-performing teams. That just proves the direct link between these human-centered practices and measurable results. It wasn't about who was on the team necessarily, but how they interacted.
Interesting. It's about the dynamics.
Exactly. And Zappos. They built their whole successful e-commerce empire on an extreme emphasis on employee happiness and a servant leadership culture. That led to amazing retention and, legendary customer satisfaction. These aren't just nice stories. They are strategic successes rooted in prioritizing people.
Okay, these examples really make a compelling case. But let's be realistic here. Transitioning to this style, especially in traditional workplaces, maybe one's deeply rooted in that old command and control structure. That can't be easy. What kind of challenges might leaders face on this journey, and how do they overcome them?
You're right, resistance is absolutely natural. People get comfortable with what they know, right? The biggest challenge is often the mindset shift. Moving from seeing empathy as just a soft skill to recognizing it as a strategic imperative. To overcome this, leaders really need to lead by example, consistently demonstrating human leadership through their own actions, not just talking about it.
Walk the talk.
Exactly. It's also vital to educate others on the tangible benefits, framing them as strategies for higher engagement, better performance, not just, niceties. Maybe start small. Pilot new practices in one team, celebrate any early wins, build alliances with others who get it. Another challenge, and it's a big one for empathetic leaders, is avoiding burnout. Leading with care is emotionally demanding. So self-awareness, prioritizing self-care, like actually setting boundaries, taking regular breaks, effective delegation, and crucially, seeking support from mentors or peer groups. Those are absolutely vital for sustainable impact.
That's such a crucial point about self-care for the leaders themselves.
Yeah.
Okay, and finally, maybe a big question many leaders grapple with. How do you maintain authority, maintain accountability, without losing that essential humanity? It feels like a tough balancing act sometimes, where one might compromise the other.
Yeah, it's another common misconception that empathy somehow undermines authority. But human leaders understand that strength and compassion are actually complementary. They're not contradictory. They maintain authority not through fear, but through respect and clarity. This means being consistently clear about expectations, about goals. Making tough decisions, yes, but respectfully and transparently. And crucially, modeling accountability. That includes admitting their own mistakes, taking responsibility. They use influence, guidance, inspiration, rather than intimidation to build trust.
So authority comes from credibility, not just position.
Precisely. When a team trusts their leader's judgment, when they genuinely believe in their intentions, authority isn't about power, it's about earned credibility. And that creates an environment where teams feel safe and motivated, even when the pressure's on and results are demanding.
That's a powerful reframing of authority. Okay, and here's where things get really thought-provoking. Our sources even suggest we can find timeless wisdom for leadership in nature itself. What can complex systems like forests or bee colonies or diverse ecosystems actually teach us about leading with humanity in a modern organization? It sounds fascinating.
It really is. Nature offers these incredibly powerful and often surprising blueprints for resilient, thriving systems. Like, consider a forest. Individual trees aren't just competing, they're interconnected. Through these vast underground fungal networks, they share nutrients, water, even warning signals. They support weaker trees, sustaining the whole ecosystem.
Wow, okay.
So for a human leader, this is a metaphor, right? For nurturing connection, fostering a culture of mutual support, making sure every team member, even someone who's struggling, feels supported by the collective. It's about building an organization that, like a forest, thrives on interconnectedness, not just isolated strength.
That's a beautiful image. What about bees?
Bee colonies. They exemplify adaptability, distributed responsibility, and just incredible teamwork for the collective good. Each bee has a role, sure, but the colony as a whole, it can rapidly adapt to environmental changes or threats. Why? Because decision-making and action aren't bottlenecked at the top with the queen.
So it's decentralized.
Exactly. Imagine a product team facing a sudden market shift. Instead of a rigid top-down order to change course, a human leader fosters distributed responsibility. They empower sub-teams to autonomously adapt their parts, trusting their collective intelligence to reorient the whole project quickly. That decentralized, agile adaptation, that's what makes bee colonies and truly human-led teams so resilient.
Resilience through distributed intelligence and ecosystems.
And finally, diverse ecosystems. They thrive on diversity and balance. No single species dominates forever, right? Resources are cycled efficiently. Leaders who truly value diversity of thought, experience, background, and who foster cooperation across different departments or skill sets. They build organizations that are far more innovative and resilient under pressure. Just like a healthy ecosystem responds to drought or disease, a human-led organization with diverse perspectives and strong cooperative networks can adapt and bounce back from challenges. It makes it far more robust than, say, a monoculture. Nature really shows us that leadership is less about rigid control and much more about nurturing, connecting, adapting, and guiding a complex system towards shared, sustainable success.
Wow, we've really covered a lot of ground today. From, dismantling that old command and control model to the surprising scientific backing for empathy and psychological safety and those incredible real-world impacts on engagement, retention, innovation. We've even drawn these really actionable lessons from the profound wisdom of nature itself. It feels undeniably clear now. Human leadership isn't just an option anymore, is it? It's truly a strategic imperative for making sense of and actually thriving in our complex digital world.
Precisely. Human leadership fundamentally shifts organizational outcomes. It moves them from reactive to proactive, from just transactional relationships to truly transformational ones. It creates sustainable, vibrant cultures, builds incredibly resilient teams, and definitely enhances organizational reputation and longevity. It is, I think, the definitive proof that prioritizing people isn't just the ethical thing to do. It's profoundly effective, deeply meaningful, and utterly essential for long-term, impactful success.
So what does this all mean for you listening right now? As you step into your leadership role tomorrow, or maybe continue in it, what if the greatest competitive advantage in this digital age isn't the newest technology or even a flawless business plan, but simply our shared humanity? How will you actively choose to lead with both heart and strategic mind tomorrow? How will you shape not just the results you achieve, but a better workplace, a stronger, more connected team, and ultimately a more meaningful and impactful career for yourself and for everyone around you? Keep diving deep into these powerful ideas.